at any rate. So again, welcome to another virtual Nosh at Noon. My name is Jason Elster, president of Downtown Madison, Inc. We're excited to be here today to hear from a wonderful panel on the future of commercial real estate, office trends, and what is going to happen. A very big and important subject that many of our members are talking about now post-COVID. But before we begin, we would not be here without our amazing sponsors, our series sponsor, Scenair, our monthly program sponsor, Fiore Companies, and our great friend. We're hoping to be back at the Hilton Madison Monona Terrace soon. We're all live here as we all get vaccinated. We've got great sponsors in Scenair, Fiore Companies, and the Hilton Madison Monona Terrace. We're going to start here. A few words from our good friend, Chris Gilling, the Vice President of Business Development for Scenair. Chris, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm well, Jason. And you?
I'm doing great.
I'm jealous a little bit of our pregame conversation as we were getting ready for this, talking about there being some energy downtown. So to that end, I'm going to try to get out of the way quickly. This is our 5th year, I think, of sponsoring Nosh at Noon, and for us at Scenair, we're a not-for-profit CDFI that believes that all people deserve the opportunities that come with living in a healthy community. And it's really one of the main reasons that we do and tied in so nicely to Nosh at Noon is it lets us kind of stretch our legs a little bit in one of the towns that we call home, and a town that I love to call home, and that's here in Madison. To that end, I think I'm going to try to get out of the way quickly here today because there's a lot of us that want to hear from this panel, thinking about some of the questions that revolve around what Jason had mentioned. Energy downtown. What comes ahead now as we come out of the pandemic and hopefully see the light at the end of the tunnel or the light at the end of the needle, whatever the case may be, as we all increase our vaccination rates. And what that's going to bear for us for a long time. I know that one of the great reasons that many people are attracted to Madison and one of its great selling points is the vibrant downtown community. And I think that there's a lot of bearing here. So my thanks to the panel, to everyone in attendance, and looking forward to this. So thanks, Jason, for putting it on. And yes, we hope to be back at the Hilton as well very soon.
Thank you, Chris, very much. There is a good energy, but we were saying in the beginning, it might just be my hyperactivity running around downtown that's creating the energy, but that's a whirlwind in itself. Next up, someone that is always going to be close and true to my heart, the person that hired me, Stacy Nemeth, former board chair of DMI and current chief operating officer of the Fiore Companies. Thank you, Fiore Companies, for your continued partnership with DMI and downtown. You guys have been fantastic. We're honored to have both you and one of your colleagues, Ben Schmidt, here on the panel. But we're going to start with Stacy. Stacy, how are you this afternoon?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me. Fiore Companies, for those of you who don't know, is a local investment company, family owned and operated, began in 1921 as a coal and oil delivery business and developed the first supermarkets and gas stations in Madison. And those properties have been redeveloped into some of the properties we still own today. So a long history in the city of Madison as an investment company, and proud to be members of DMI. We've been actively involved for many years, and this topic today is obviously one that is very close to our hearts, as the majority of our investments locally are in real estate in the downtown area. So I am thrilled to have my colleague and respected member of our team, Ben Schmidt, as one of the panelists today, and we look forward to talking more about this and looking towards brighter days ahead for downtown.
You're here to brighter days ahead. Speaking of brighter days ahead, my good friends in the hospitality industry, Renette Bauer, as you know, I worked in hospitality for a long time. We're hoping that we can get back live next time at our friends at the Hilton. Renette, how are you this afternoon?
Very good. Thanks for letting me speak to a little bit about your energy. What we're seeing in a lot of the hospitality downtown is we're seeing people come back on the weekend. So being a Friday, we're seeing a surge, that's not the right word, we're seeing occupancy come back on the weekends, Fridays, Saturdays, people wanting to get out, those people who are comfortable traveling and are vaccinated, coming back to Madison, and that vibe, that energy, our restaurants participating and supporting the downtown area. Midweek is still at a crawl, But just know if your companies have travelers that are coming in, the hotels are ready. We're clean, we're safe. Every hotel downtown has very strict cleaning protocols. So know that when your travelers are ready to travel, all of us will take great care of them and welcome them back to downtown. And when we're ready, the Hilton will welcome this meeting back when it's ready, or just when it's time, we'll know.
Renette, can any of us book a midweek staycation?
Oh, yes, you can. Just pick your day. Midweek is, there's some flexibility there.
I mean, it's really fun to view your own city as a tourist. Yeah. I highly recommend it. Go stay at the Hilton, check it out. Great location. Come down, enjoy the Streetery, which is just a block away at Lucille.
Yep.
And all those.
Absolutely. Visit Madison, has some great little mini staycations out there. There's great opportunities for people to get out and experience our own backyard and support the businesses.
Excellent. Renette, thank you. Stacy at Fiore Companies, thank you. And Chris Jillings and the team at Scenario. We really do appreciate all your partnership. We would literally not be here today without you. Now, we're going to get right into this program. This is a very important program today, again, with a panel of experts on commercial real estate and office space trends and future opportunities in downtown areas, and specifically in downtown Madison. So we're going to hear from 5 different speakers. They're going to give little mini presentations each, and then we want to have a lot of time left at the end for your questions. So once all 5 are concluded, we will open it up for questions. If you have a question, you can do one of 2 things. You can send it in the chat listed to me, and I can ask the question directly, or you can raise your hand, and the raise hand function is in the reactions button at the bottom there. If you're updated on Zoom, just raise your hand and we will call and you could ask your question directly. So we're going to dig right into it. I'm going to quickly introduce the panelists and we're going to start right thereafter. First, we've got Ben Schmidt, the Senior Vice President at Fiore Companies. Today, we also have Craig Stanley, who is the founding principal of Broadwing Advisors. Next up, we have Heather Ewing, founder and principal of Abstract Commercial Real Estate. We've got current DMI board member, Janine Punzel, principal at 360 Commercial Real Estate. And last but certainly not least, Drew Martin, Director of Design Visualization with Strang. And before we get going, I just need to send a shout out to my friend, Peter Tan. I miss you, friend. Giving you a virtual hug. If you don't know Peter Tan, one of the principals at Strang, a great, great person making things happen in Madison. So there's my presidential ability to do that. So hello, Peter. We're going to start with another friend of mine, Ben Schmidt, who apparently we're wearing the exact same sporting coat today. Ben, you're up first.
Great choice of wardrobe, especially for Friday afternoon, Jason. It's, you know, especially when the sun comes out and the weather's starting to get nice for the first time in a few months. So thank you for having me. I am wearing
tennis shoes though, so.
Well, see, that's the reason for the activity level downtown today. It's my pleasure to be here. It's also, I had the chance, perhaps some of you were able to attend a panel we had very early on in the pandemic, which unbelievably now is almost a year ago. And it's really interesting that if you're downtown today versus a year ago, just think back to how much of a night and day difference it really is. I mean, it's March and April of last year, we were really in the throes of uncertainty. Across the board, we were all transitioning to working from home to the extent possible, or trying to stay away from big gatherings. We didn't know how the virus worked. We didn't have acceptance on even simple things like wearing masks and other, what I would call simple safety precautions, right? And here we are a year later, and we're talking about how can we get more than half of the population vaccinated, because we're already at a point where half of the adult residents in Dane County in particular, and almost across the country, are vaccinated. And ultimately, that is the key. That safety measure is what is the key that's going to allow not just real estate, but the economy in general to bounce back and activity to resume to something like normal going forward. So we've seen more activity downtown. It's picking up. All those trends are good. I think from the landlord side of things, since Fiore is a property owner downtown, from the landlord's side of things, as we look at the calendar and what we're hearing from our tenants, we're probably shooting towards the second half into the fall of this year before things really get back to what I might call a normal schedule, because that's the point at which it's likely kids are going to be back in school, kids are going to be back in daycare, presumably the most possible people are going to be vaccinated, and that's the point at which we can start to get back to that sort of normal scheduling. So I'm guessing you're having similar conversations within your own firms about that timing and what that means. And so we're looking forward to better things to come. As it relates to specifically to real estate, I'm very interested to hear the comments from the other panelists today. I would say from our perspective at Fiore, what the past year has meant to us is really the incredible benefit and necessity of having to work with your tenants. We own quite a bit of office space downtown. We also own quite a bit of retail space in various neighborhoods in Madison. And I'm proud to report that here we are a year on from when the pandemic hit. And because of our cooperation with our tenants, because of their resiliency, and frankly, because of government programs that have been put in place, we can look back and say we have not lost a tenant during the pandemic that wasn't already making plans to close. So we didn't know that we'd be at this point a year ago. You know, when we sat here in April last year, we were thinking perhaps there could be a significant percentage. So it's a testament to their resiliency. It's a testament to you as customers and clients of those businesses altering your behaviors and ordering out and takeouts and otherwise that you might not have otherwise done, embracing the Streetery program, and ultimately supporting those businesses that you wanted to see at this point a year ago. And then as it relates to office space in particular, I know others will have their own comments to share, but I think for us on the landlord side, we are really seeing it's what normal looks like going forward is really shaping up to be a firm by firm type of decision. So those come down to issues of corporate culture. It comes down to issues of what those firms value, how they operate, what the inherent nature of their business is. And we're trying to tailor our services on the landlord side to meet each firm with what their plans are going forward. We have some tenants that didn't really ever fully vacate during the pandemic. We had, particularly among our law firms, a lot of activity in the buildings with the ability to, a lot of private offices and ways that they could be safe in the office, close the doors, isolate from other coworkers. And then we've seen other tech firms that had big open workspaces where it was known on day one that that wasn't going to be an operable model for the foreseeable future. So as firms start to make plans for what their workforce and their operations are going to look like going forward, we're working with them on a firm by firm basis to try to implement the things that they need.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ben. And we're going to be able to ask questions of Ben and here today. Next up, we have longtime DMI board member and great friend of DMI, Craig Stanley, the founder and principal of Broadwing Advisors. He's going to give us a sort of overview of what is happening in the area. Good afternoon, Craig.
Thank you, Jason. I'm going to share my screen in a second, but I just want to say thank you to DMI and to Jason and Maddie for setting this up. This is great. I think Ben's outlining, as I share my screen, sort of what's going on with landlords today and how do they view this. And hopefully you can all see that.
We can, Craig, yes.
Okay. So as I think about where we are today and what's gone on, this is a set of surveys that have been done over time that we have studied. And these pre-pandemic numbers are really where office workers were occupying themselves in the world of office space. And I'm going to focus most of my time on office space. Where were they pre-pandemic? And numerous surveys came out over the last year. By early summer, the feeling was the work from home, 12% of employees wanted to work from home permanently. 44 said they want some sort of hybrid mix, and 44 said they want to come back to the office 5 days a week. Over time, that number on the work at home rose to 18% by fall, and it has since dropped to 10% as of today. All three of the major corporate real estate providers did a study in the last month, and they've all come up with this basically 10% number. So that number has dropped over time. Employees don't love being at home full-time as much as they thought they did in the fall. The other really interesting fact is more employees want hybrid over time, and these hybrid numbers are 1 to 4 days a week, and that's Ben sort of alluded to this. What does that look like? And I'll touch base on that in a second. But that's sort of the new normal is people want flexibility. And what does that look like firm by firm? Some will have more of an office focus, some will have more of a hybrid focus. And what does that look like? But the other interesting fact is that this number from 44 to 32 down to 24% is interesting in the fact that less people want to be in the office 5 days a week. So the predominance of the hybrid has really affected it. So what does that mean for downtown? And most of the national, and we kind of outline it as these 5 stages of where companies will be. Are you office centric or you're virtual and remote? And these all existed before, but we were definitely more in this office centric mindset pre-pandemic. And I just threw the sort of major types of companies, organizations that are downtown and where will they fit. And this is my estimation. Law firms, we believe everybody is going to basically move more hybrid, but it will be less resistant on certain types of organizations. Lobbyists may stay down here, but associations might have more back office functions, may become more remote and virtual. And technology firms really run the gamut. They want to be back, some want to be back, and some are going completely remote virtual. Some were that way before. So again, variation matters, but we're going to see a wide swath of what that looks like. What I can't find any detail or any data on, and none of the national firms have given me any of this, is where states are. So I just sort of put them in all 3 categories and all 3 buckets, but I don't know where the state of Wisconsin is, much less where other states nationally are in terms of their footprints. So what does that mean? What does that mean for getting folks back downtown, and how does that thing? I sort of focused on 3 areas of what we can do as an organization and as a community to make downtown recover faster, because there's certainly going to be some challenges. And one of the things Ben brought up is historically when there's a downturn, it takes about a year before we start to see the effect on the office real estate market. That effect has actually happened quicker throughout. We actually have had almost a 3.5% to 4% jump in vacancy across Dane County in the 1-year time period. But that will start to impact, I believe, further because of that hybrid mix and what that looks like. I do believe people will come back to the office. I just can't predict how much downsizing will happen. So what do we need to do? I believe we need to focus on making all downtown amenities the 3rd space. So office, home are 2 places people are going to work. Let's make places downtown the 3rd space where people want to work. 2, I think we need to be creative and nimble and think about different types of events and places downtown to create the new buzz that bring people back downtown sooner and faster. And finally, the city's been pretty creative in trying to work with how to do things. And I just think we need to continue to remove barriers and find investment for downtown so people think about downtown as that old buzz, but creating the new buzz for downtown. Thank you.
Craig, Stanley, thank you very much. Those are great ideas, and I think wonderful platform for much of the work that DMI is doing now and will do in the future. And part of that conversation on 3rd space is the retail sector and what is going to happen with the retail spaces. And we have one of the experts on downtown, a member of our great friends, Madison Central Business Improvement District's board and executive committee, and founder and president of Abstract Commercial Real Estate, Heather Ewing, and my running partner. We see each other running all of the time. Heather, how are you today? Oh no, do we not have Heather?
She's muted.
Thank you. I can't see her. Thank you, Rebecca.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
There she is.
Yes.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you for having me. It's definitely a joy and pleasure. I know that downtown is near and dear to all of our hearts, and especially having lived in the downtown and continuing to live in the downtown and work from the downtown, it's something that's really interwoven to all of the things that I do. And I think that we here cumulatively as a group really seek out and want to rebirth and bring it back stronger and better than before. And I don't know, Madeline, if you're able to pull up my slide deck. I was having internet problems.
Yeah.
I'll talk for a little bit. I just sent that through to you.
Yeah, I saw it. We're good. Do you want me to share it now?
Yeah, if you could pull that up.
All right.
So a lot of our work is focused in the bid area, which is typically State Street, the King Street area, which is First Settlement, and the Capitol Square. And as we come to State Street, there's been more activity this year. Last year was definitely extremely quiet. As far as tours and things of that nature, there was pretty much not inquiries. What I was finding is a lot of interest in the suburbs. People were definitely concerned about what was happening with COVID, with different property concerns. And we're just really looking to be near the downtown, but they weren't quite comfortable going to the downtown. So I did sign several lease deals outside of the downtown. I'm really happy to see that there is more of an interest this year, 2021, but it's definitely not what it used to be. And I think kind of like Ben was referring to and other people, that with the vaccines and moving forward with that, people are definitely feeling a greater comfort level. And I think certain categories are going to continue bolstering forward. Others are taking a major step back and shifting and re-engineering, retooling per se, and they're going to come back differently. You can go ahead and switch the slide. People are reevaluating spaces. So what does it need to have? How does it need to feel? There's a greater emphasis on feelings. People have been feeling not very safe. They've been feeling volatile through all the different changes, all the unknowns. So it's really curating a space that helps them to really get away from everything. So not only is it the cleanliness, the hand sanitizers, masks, things of that nature, but it's also, they're shifting into the realm of colors and scents and things of that nature to also bring forth a new environment for people. We can go into the next. Omnichannel. So the really neat thing with this as well is that we saw the drone deliveries that they were starting to test out. Also Amazon with their cashierless checkouts. What I would say is with COVID, it has only really hastened the pace for these changes. So I would say we've really projected ourselves forward a few years in the last year because of all of the changes, which is definitely a plus. This little picture in the bottom right corner is actually on the UW campus, and it delivers people's food. So what they do is go onto their phone, order via an app, the little delivery comes to you, you press the code, and voila, dinner is served. Next one. We're also going to see on a national level more influencers. So retailers are trying to get creative, having people, we all know Kim Kardashian, she has definitely raised a lot of money for various products that she sells and others. So we will see more of this on a national level. Next one. Also, mass personalization. So the really neat thing about this is with the COVID and all the different changes, again, retailers were getting creative because you either move forward or you step back and you're out of the game. This is a great example on this slide of Sephora, that they actually have an opportunity for people to try makeup on. So I know you guys are out of this game, but the nice thing about it is it gives you the opportunity to shop and to buy things, but also to have that kinesthetic feeling that we had when we were all shopping in the malls and things of that nature. So great progress in this range. Next slide. Ease and efficiency. What's fascinating additionally is due to all the returns, all the online shopping while we were in the houses, is that the businesses are picturing a hybrid. So when you come into a retail space, in one section will be the brand new goods, fresh off of the press. On the other side will almost be like a mini warehouse area or delivery where you can drop off what you ordered if it didn't fit, if you didn't like it, and you can shop and buy new. So the stores will have a different look and feel as well as time continues to roll out. Next slide. And then the big cherry on the top, right? What do we as concerned citizens need to do to really bring a new vibrancy, a greater vibrancy, and just really recreate our downtown area? And this is something we've been working very diligently on the bid and the executive committee and also with the board. And with this is streetery programs. We saw great success in the first settlement district with Lucille and Ancora and Merchant, where they were able to extend seating out. And that really did save those businesses. And that's something that we need to let sink in, the power of streetery. And we have another opportunity to do this here in 2021. And this is what we're really driving for on State Street. We would love to have an entire street. Maybe it'll be a few blocks. But this is where each and every one of us, not only on DMI, but also Madison as a whole and all those that support our downtown, really do need to share, utilize our voices at plan commissions, speak with others, and put your vote in, put your voice in as well, so that we can allow these streeters, allow our retailers to come back, because we lost over 34 businesses in the bid last year. If you do go down State Street, there is some relief that there's an uptick with the warmer weather, but there is still a great deficit with it. We have about 1.25 million approximately on the street, whereas in regular times that was over 3.5 million. So we are headed for the right pace, but I really encourage everyone, if you were to take one takeaway from this today, is to please use your voice, vote at transportation meetings and other avenues, so that we can really dig deep, help support our retailers, because the downtown is the heartbeat. And I appreciate everyone doing what you can. And if there's any questions, I'd love to be of assistance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heather. And look, there's amazing videos of downtown. She does a great job on Instagram and several other places. So check out Heather's videos of downtown. Does great work. Next up,
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Another great friend, longtime DMI board member. I think it's her last year on the DMI board, unfortunately. But our good friend, Janine, the founder, principal of 360 Commercial Real Estate. She's going to talk about office space changes moving forward. Hello, Janine. How are you?
Great, Jason, and thank you for the nice introduction. Really appreciate that. One little segue before I go back into office is I want to mention related to some of the service retail. I think one of the trends we're starting to see is that rather than larger studios or salons, you're seeing some experienced professionals who are sort of a destination in and of themselves, starting to seek out more like direct entry spaces for their own salon, or in one case recently, I talked to a tattoo artist who was in a larger studio and is looking to have more of a self-contained space for, you know, going into the future. So I think we're going to see some of that. I am also seeing office tenants, you know, if they're at a point where their leases are expiring and they're looking around, I see some of them seeking less space than they occupied pre-COVID, which probably isn't a huge surprise based on some of what our, you know, my predecessors said earlier in the presentation. They are looking for that hybrid model that Craig talked about, and as he described quite well, that can be anywhere from, you know, working at home from 1 to 4 days per week. But that isn't keeping businesses from leasing office space. So what I'm hearing from some folks is that they want nice spaces for their team, but instead of having assigned workstations, they're looking at more of a hoteling model. And, you know, members of their team can float in and out of these spaces as needed. So, you know, we'll probably see people, you know, who might have their M&M's dispenser on their desk having to go to a little bit slightly more portable model, you know, as they look at sharing these office spaces. And even though a business may be seeking less space, they're putting a strong emphasis on it being the right space, and that's going to be designed by their specific needs. So I believe we're going to see businesses taking an opportunity to upgrade their smaller spaces, you know, similar to what we saw in the commercial office market when it was somewhat depressed in 2007 and 2008. I think we're going to see office users starting to upgrade from Class C space to B and from B to A space, rather than strictly looking at a potential downsizing of their space as being a way to save on rent. I think they're truly going to look for, maximizing those dollars in a nicer space. One of my other topics was coming out of the pandemic. What are some of the silver linings I see for commercial real estate? And I think what we're going to see is really increased creativity and how real estate is used. In addition to those direct considerations, such as the potential need for continued, social distancing, appropriate cleaning in office spaces and other spaces, focus on indoor air quality. We're gonna see some other, less direct impacts. Like, for example, construction costs. They've continued to increase since the start of the pandemic. And that's going to likely encourage more creative, adaptive reuse of underutilized real estate as compared to the cost of building new. One example I can think of is I received a call from an out-of-state developer who focuses on very specific projects. And one of the sites that they were considering has been vacant for 20 years. So we've seen big box retail repurposed for storage, and I was excited to hear about this project in particular, where we might see one of those types of properties repurposed for more people-focused use. And I think those kind of projects are going to happen. And finally, I guess I would end with a statement that the commercial real estate industry responds to new challenges and new opportunities. So outside of the pandemic, just thinking about everyone on this panel, brokers at least, have probably received no fewer than 10 emails this week related to nationwide CBD industry, real estate opportunities. So whether it's change in regulation, technology, or a worldwide pandemic, I think the commercial real estate industry finds a way to capitalize and just continue to be creative in how we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Janine, with 360 Commercial Real Estate. Last but not least, we have our good friend, Drew Martin, Director of Design Visualization with Strang, who's going to talk about office space trends. And once Drew is done, we're going to open it up for questions. We'll have a good amount of time, about 20 minutes for your questions. Again, if you have a question, either send them in the chat right now and I can ask them, or at the time, use the raise hands function in the reaction section. Drew, good afternoon. How are you?
Great. How are you? Well, thanks, Jason. I'd like to echo everyone else in thanking DMI for hosting this event and for inviting Strang to participate on this panel. I'm a senior vice president and architect at Strang, and well, I've been thinking a lot about bread for about a year now. At the beginning of the pandemic, like many people around the country, I started to cultivate my own sourdough starter and began baking bread to save time because I wasn't commuting. At the same time, I was interested in the history of bread, and especially bread after the Spanish flu epidemic and how that serves as a mirror for today. So, why bread? Well, I think that bread is a really important proxy for human society. Bread's a critical element in worship of many religions around the world, and even the fact that we organize ourselves into companies has a reference to bread right in our language, from the Latin com meaning together and pane meaning bread, so people we break bread together with. I also want to set the stage for the Spanish flu epidemic. At the time, germ theory was the latest scientific advancement, and there was a basic understanding among the population that there were tiny organisms that could spread disease, but this led to an obsession with cleanliness and a reactionary response to eliminate human touch from as many things as possible, including many manufacturing processes that were traditionally handmade. So we see this obsession in building materials first introduced at the time, for example, Formica introduced in 1920. The fact that these materials were manufactured by machines rather than humans was marketed as new, exciting, and most importantly, sterile. And it was the same way with bread as a proxy for this society. Before the pandemic, most bread was made in a local bakery or at home, but those became symbols for and vectors for disease that led to the rise in popularity of the very first industrial white bread, one of the last foods to be industrialized. This white bread was untouched by human hands, and each loaf was identical, and it was a testament to the technology of the time. So what's different today? Again, we have this testament to technology, this ability to connect with anyone at any time without leaving our houses, finally allowing us to achieve the fully sterile world they could only dream of 100 years ago. But I think that we have this great desire for human connection more now than ever. And once again, I think bread is a great proxy as the pendulum now swings in the opposite direction. Last year, when we were all making the best of the world, best of our work from home situation and our new relationship with our laptops, there was also a yeast and flour shortage nationwide, as it seemed like just about everyone was doing the same thing I was doing. They were making bread out of a longing for human touch and products that displayed that human connection. And that gives me a lot of hope for the hybrid office of the future. Rather than rejecting humanity like we did 100 years ago in favor of technology, in the post-pandemic world, I think we're poised to capitalize on the best that technology has to offer, while also encouraging that critical human element. And I believe that office space will lead the charge here. So I've identified a few critical elements that, or critical ingredients in order to bake the office of the future. First off, the office of the future has to be a hub for informal information exchange, because this is how we form new relationships and start to build those relationships. And I think the best example here is for onboarding new employees. There's been a lot of discussion about the limitations of virtual connections to provide a positive onboarding experience. And I think it's because virtual connections feel really comfortable when you're familiar with people, but for many new people, it can be incredibly intimidating to pick up the phone or send an email. Email just carries a lot more weight than turning around and asking the person next to you a really simple question. Because virtual meetings tend to be more focused on tasks and more transactional, they just limit the free flow of more informal information exchange. Second, the office needs to be a hub for social interaction. Once we've got those initial relationships in place, we need to start to maintain them and cultivate them. Frequent in-person interactions lead to commitment and cooperation among teams, which leads to more successful projects and better retention. Those human moments energize people and lead to increased empathy and support. And we have to remember, it's relationships, not collaboration, that builds trust between people. Third, the office needs to be a hub for unstructured collaboration in order to leverage those important relationships that we've cultivated. You can't plan for impromptu conversations, but if you're comfortable with the people around you and feel safe, you can design spaces where those are more likely to happen. As an architect, I'm particularly interested in the monuments to collaboration and the role they play in the design of an office. So for example, in many flavors of Agile, the Agile task board as a monument to collaboration. And I'm really interested in the interactions that happen around that as you move Post-it notes from one column to the other. Like, you know, hey, you're working on that, I'm working on this, we should talk. Often the most unique and valuable decisions come from these unplanned interactions. But lastly, I think one of the most important ingredients is the company's culture. So it brings all of the other ingredients together in different proportions as they're appropriate for each company and injects the life into those ingredients, like the yeast in bread. Your culture must cultivate a hybrid work environment that embraces the best technology has to offer, but also encourages trust and empathy through in-person interaction. I know this was a lunch session today, but unfortunately we're all still remote for now. I've got my bread here. I hope we can all break bread together soon in person. And thank you once again to DMI, and I'm looking forward to further discussion about the post-pandemic office of tomorrow.
Drew, thank you very much. That was personally very special for me because I love bread, and you remembered that I needed to order my sandwich from Caseta. So I literally just ordered, I'll eat it next door. Ben, you're welcome for supporting Caseta Kitchen downtown. We want to open it up to questions for all of you. Before we do, though, we want to make sure you guys are aware that DMI, through our friends at Fiore Companies, Mullins, and ULI, about a month and a half ago, did an employer office survey asking when they thought their teams were going to come back to office. We had over 80 respondents, and over 70% of those respondents said they're either there now or they're going to be there by fall. And I think that's a very important thing to acknowledge, that many are coming back. Before we get to questions from everyone else, if you have a question, either send the questions through the chat or in through the reactions. I'm going to start with one question about what Drew just actually talked about. And I think it's important, and maybe Craig as well, we had several conversations, the power of proximity and that power of agglomeration, right? Bringing people together, that's what makes downtown special, that especially innovative and creative businesses like law firms, engineering firms, architecture firms, tech firms, need innovation coming from different groups of people being near each other. Is that going to help protect a downtown like Madison, maybe from other areas in the office market that might not fare as well post-COVID?
I'll start. I think ultimately downtown will fare better than the rest of our market. I don't think we're a downtown like New York or Chicago, where you may see some companies move to the suburbs or have a more hub and spoke decentralized model of their corporate real estate. I think in general, we will continue to be the hub for organizations. It's just going to look, our mobile workforce is going to be more mobile, and we're going to have organizations are going to have to be very purposeful of how to create their culture and how to create their connectivity with their employees and their teams. And Drew really hit home on what that needs to look like, and that's the key. That's going to be space design. Even Janine touched on this. I think companies are going to invest in space. They may reduce space, but in space and people on how to create those connections. And as a downtown, if we think of that, that's why I focused on the third space. If we think about making downtown the place that really draws people there and their work enables that, I think we have a real opportunity to stay ahead of the rest of the real estate market in the office space, as I believe we'll see some downturn in the next 24 to 36 months.
Yeah, I agree on the third
Thank you,
space. I have the book here that introduced the idea of that by Ray Oldenburg. I always have that within reach. Third space is something we've been talking about a lot for a couple of years, but I think that by breaking the barrier between first and second space, between home and work, we also blur the lines between work and public space or third space. And really the idea that people can work from anywhere. And if we create the positive places where people want to be, that could include downtown.
All right, if you have questions, I mean, I can just ask questions all day to these five. So, but if you have your questions, send them in through the chat and or use the reaction function and raise your hand. My question is about Madison and its sort of resiliency. Maybe to Ben, to Craig, Janine, Heather, anyone really. We know many people are saying that Madison has the potential to come back from COVID a little bit more strongly than other economies. We've seen that from Brookings Institute, from Bloomberg. Zach Brandon in the chamber does a good presentation that, our numbers are maybe there where we can recover more quickly. What does that mean for downtown Madison? Obviously, we know we're going to lose some commercial real estate, right? Just what Janine talked about. People are going to modify, maybe cut down on their space usage. But are there other new companies that can come in to help backfill, since the economy is relatively strong still in Madison?
I'll speak from the retail sector. What's interesting is I took an inventory of the recent deals that I have done in the downtown area, and about 50% are brand new concepts, which kind of surprised me, right? So during this time, people have either been on one side of the page or the other. They've always had either the forward focus of creating or on the opposite, a complete opposite opinion of it. And so with these newer opportunities, they're really pushing the social media. They're really extending their brands, really hitting the ground in that sense. The other approximate 50% were actually locals and regionals. I thought there would probably be maybe a slightly uptick with the national, just because of the dollar and the revenues that they have. And if they lose at one of their locations, it's not as big of a deal for them, but it's been about 50-50 between new and current businesses in the area.
This is Ben. I'll I'll speak a little bit to those same trends, a little bit in the office market, but I think more generally as to how Madison positions itself and how others outside of Madison are coming to view our community. It's a great credit to the work of the chamber and the work of city government and the work of Destination Madison and Thrive and others, in that Madison has a profile on a national basis that's much higher today than it used to be, right? And I shouldn't leave out, some of our flagship companies that are here in Madison as well. If you look, I think American Family Insurance is probably the #1 company in that way. If you look at where they were 10 years ago, the size they were at, and how they've grown through acquisitions over the past 10 years, and how they've probably had organic growth as well, they are a much different company today and a much higher profile company today. And that casts a light on the rest of us here in Madison as well. We've always had very established companies. I don't know that we've had as much of visibility as we do today until recently. And that is a unique opportunity for us. It's something I think Madison, we have to coordinate to take better advantage of, particularly at this point in time, because there's unique circumstances coming out of the pandemic, and we just have more people looking at our community than ever before. So to the points raised, I fully agree. We will see some contractions in the office market in particular, not just in downtown, but across the community. And the reason for that is what we're talking to our tenants about, and what I think every office user, whether they own or they lease real estate, they're looking at how much value do they get out of that asset, right? If it's an asset that sits unused and doesn't provide value to the organization, why are they paying for it? And those conversations have always kind of happened, but I've heard more of those conversations in the past year than I've ever heard before. And I've heard more desire to get to a point where start making decisions. I think the uncertainty of the past year has created a lot of hesitancy to make those decisions, but now as we come out of the pandemic, my bet is we will start to see decisions get made, and we'll start to see activity one way or another. And the reason that ties back into our visibility as a community is if we're going to have office tenants in particular, downtown or otherwise, that are retrenching, that are downsizing, that are making more efficient use of their office space, then we also need to be making a concerted effort to attract those other office users, whether they're here now or want to be here, to backfill some of the space that frees up. There are going to be tremendous opportunities in the office environment over the next 3 to 5 years, not so much because rents are going to be dirt cheap or something like that, but there's going to be more existing office space come available and get repurposed than we've seen in the market in the past, 5 to 10 years maybe. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. I don't think it's definitely not all doom and gloom from our perspective, but it will take some creative thinking, and it'll take some concerted efforts to really think about how those models are going to work going forward.
Janine, I think you wanted to respond as well.
Yeah, so just to kind of take off on, maybe a hit to the office market downtown, I think landlords can look creatively at, are there nonprofits that they would like to support and maybe offer rent to them at a lower rental rate? Case in point, DMI about, 15 years ago, I don't know how long it was, but when I was with Howdy, I think we offered a rent that was like at 50% of market, and over time as, options ended and things like that, being on DMI's board at that time and no longer a member of that organization, we had tough conversations, but I think the value to the organization of being downtown was quite clear. And, I think there are opportunities to bring new organizations, I guess, to downtown. And that's, if you're going to take a hit, to your rental income, look at ways to help support some of these businesses and bring them into the fold. And Urban Land recently did that with Boys and Girls Club. So I think that's great. And that's a great opportunity.
I think a really good follow-up question to that is about will office contraction create a conversion to retail? I think we've seen that maybe in other markets. Maybe Craig or Ben, are you seeing that?
I saw the question, it said residential, right? So
I'm sorry, I meant residential, excuse me.
there's conversations, particularly in bigger markets. I know there's conversations going on in New York. There's pressure from activists and otherwise to essentially, if you're a bigger market, we haven't seen this in Madison and downtown Madison, but if you're a bigger CBD market in a bigger city and you have office assets that are essentially sitting there being wasted, there will be pressure to convert those to a use that is not wasting those assets, right? Whether that's residential or something else. I think a couple things on that. It speaks to the importance of building quality in the first place, because when you have quality structures, you have quality infrastructure, that opens up the possibility for those conversions over time, and you have more valuable assets for longer, which is important to growing a city and growing community. The second piece being, you have to think really hard about what those conversions are and how they fit into the fabric of downtown, right? Simply saying, well, if an office is unused, it should become affordable housing. That's a really easy thing to say. That's a very hard thing to implement. So, but by hard, it's not just hard, it's not hard socially necessarily. It's literally hard, it's expensive. Buildings aren't necessarily equipped for it. It takes different infrastructure and it becomes challenging, right? So I think, I'll say this, if tomorrow we woke up and there were no office users who wanted to come to downtown Madison anymore, we would certainly convert our buildings to a different use. What that is, well, we'll see what that is. But there are growing, if office is shrinking, there are still growing markets. I'm a little surprised how little senior housing there is in Madison compared to other communities that I have family living in other markets. I think there are opportunities there. I think there's opportunities just generally in residential, whether it's conversion or new construction. And then there's probably other uses that we're not as familiar with that are taking off in other markets. If we just study harder, we probably find there's a desire for it here too.
Ben, let's hope I don't wake up tomorrow when there's no office tenants downtown. That would be a real problem for me personally. Janine, for all of us, really, the whole community.
I can hit on a couple of the questions I'm seeing in the chat. Mary Carbine had asked about, safety with hoteling, and my company does management as well. So I've learned more about commercial cleaning and air handling systems than you might think. And there are devices, for example, for tenant spaces, if you're unsure of, how the HVAC is being handled, you can purchase ion machines that have their own fan unit and, plug them into your own space. And it's an investment you can put into your workspace that you can take with you. It, literally is a little unit that, you can have size to your space. So that's one thought. Another question that came up was about commercial condos. Nathan, why you asked about that? And we certainly have been marketing for 929 East Wash, the tower that Kurt Brink's been in the news about in the past as potential for office condo. We're focusing on a couple of other projects on the block right now, but there's certainly, we're open to that. And if anyone is interested in that sort of a opportunity, let me know and I'd be happy to talk with you about it.
I think we got time for one more quick question here, and specifically this is for Craig, because Craig and I have had this conversation. One of the positives with downtown right now is there is a very large amount of residential in the entitlement phase or in the construction phase right now. We've seen LZ's project just knocked down Old Clinky Cleaners. The Keller project on West Wash, is now up and running. About 1,500 potential units in downtown. How will that affect the commercial real estate market?
So residential is always the first mover in a market. If you think about suburban development, residential is first, retail follows, office goes third. And by us putting more residential into downtown, it's going to help our commercial markets because you're adding bodies, you're adding people who shop, you're adding people that want to be close to their office. It's going to help our overall market. So I see it nothing but positive. we are growing. We have always struggled as a city to what do we want to be? Are we still a small community or are we a small big city? And we're becoming a small big city. And this goes to your earlier question about where do I see growth and opportunity? And I continue to see growth and opportunity in the technology space. All the support functions, support organizations like attorneys, lawyers, lobbyists, real estate people, we're going to all benefit from that. But the growth of our economy and the Chamber and DMI have done a wonderful job with life science and technology and health technology are going to continue to grow and help our economy grow. And that's going to drive, if you look at our influx of people coming into Dane County, we're going to continue to see that demand. And our challenge will be how to find affordable housing to balance that out as a community. I do want to address one thing that somebody asked about co-working because it relates to the office market. It is a fabric of the office world in general. I would like to say co-working in the last couple years pre-pandemic sort of got out over its skis, I think, in Madison. There were a lot of them. And we've had some consolidation. I sort of like to describe it as too many developers put too many buildings up at the same times. We had too many co-working, and the market is, and part of it is that third space. Co-working I see as part of that third space, but do you compete with a coffee shop just as like a co-working space? And we're just going to right size that. It will always be there. It will always be strong, but what the right mix is really a function of the commercial markets overall, the commercial office markets overall.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Craig. That is the end of our panel, but we have a lot more information on this subject. In fact, the reason why I say that with Craig is he's got a presentation coming up in a few weeks. So I'm just going to run over a couple of things. If you're interested in this subject, please join us. We have a lot happening. Ann Morrison and the team in the Economic Development Committee are up to a lot. This Monday, the 19th, we have a meeting of our Economic Development Committee to talk about the Core Spaces Project on the 300 block of State. So please join us then at 8 a.m. On the 22nd, a week from yesterday, our next virtual What's Up Downtown breakfast. We have Amy Supple and Joel Plant talking about entertainment and conference venues coming back online. Really important part of downtown. It's a $300 million industry downtown. On the 27th, please join us for a longer form conversation with Craig Stanley of Broadwing to talk more deeply about the numbers. So he's going to really dive in. So the 27th, Tuesday at 8 a.m., join Craig for a longer conversation with EDC. And then last but not least, we're excited to announce a new partnership with our friends in downtown Milwaukee and a new program called the Madison and Milwaukee Downtown Exchange. Thank you to our partners at Reinhardt and Bolt for their work to bring that forward. We have a series of quarterly conversations about how we can work more together as downtowns on transportation, in commercial real estate, and big ideas. Really interesting series coming up. Thank you again to Drew Martin, the Director of Design Visualization at Strang, Janine Punzel, Principal of 360 Commercial Real Estate, Heather Ewing with Abstract Commercial, the founder, and Craig Stanley, the founding principal of Broadwing Advisors. And last but not least, Ben Schmidt, the Senior Vice President of Fiore Companies. And thank you to our friends at Sinair and at Fiore. Thank you very much. And last but not least, our friends at the Hilton Madison Monona Terrace. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week. Go support downtown. I'm literally going to go across the street and get my sandwich from Casetta. Come downtown. That's how you can support us right now. We'll talk to you all soon. Have a great rest of the day. Wonderful weekend. Thank you all again.
Goodbye. Thank you.